It is June 10th, 2000, and this is the 125th Commencement from the University of Washington in Seattle. From UWTV, welcome to another broadcast of our graduation ceremonies coming to you from Husky Stadium. I'm Jim Stutzman.
And I'm Lynn Francisco. Today's graduates have just begun to enter the stadium. Those first in line are doctoral students, and they will be, of course, the first to enter the stadium. Master's degree candidates are next in line, and the last group to enter will be the undergraduates of the graduating class of 2000. It all looks very formal, but looks are deceiving. Commencement is really more fun than formal, and you'll have a chance to see that firsthand.
The class of 2000 is the largest graduating class in our history, unofficially 10,223. The large size due in part to increasing enrollments at both the University of Washington, Bothell, and Tacoma, and the fact that those students who will actually graduate this summer, or at least some of them, are taking part in today's event. Tacoma's commencement was held yesterday at the Tacoma Dome. You will see some excerpts from that later in this broadcast. Bothell holds its graduation ceremonies tomorrow at the Meydenbauer Center in Bellevue.
And next year, those ceremonies will take place on the new Bothell campus, which officially opens this fall. Later in this broadcast, we'll give you a quick tour of that campus.
Commencement always brings out lots of family and friends. We've had requests for over 42,000 tickets this year. When told that parking is very difficult for this event, one individual actually chartered a bus to bring the whole family. The bus carries 50 people, and he expected it to be full.
It's not unusual. If you will look around, you'll probably notice to see graduates munching al fresco during this ceremony. In fact, it's become kind of a commencement tradition. This is a very pretty setting for lunching and munching. And another tradition, cell phones. Sometimes a cell phone is about the only way for today's guests to find their graduating son or daughter among all the graduates who will take part in this ceremony.
Today's broadcast is carried in the Wenatchee area on UWTV Channel 18 and in Spokane on UWTV Channel 16. Our outlet in the Seattle area is Channel 27. This telecast will be rebroadcast on these same stations over the next week to give those who missed the live event a chance to see their friends and family members taking part in these ceremonies.
And by the way, you are more than welcome to record this program. Many people do just that, to have a record of their offspring or their friend's graduation. It makes for a very memorable keepsake. If you don't have recording equipment but would like a video copy of these ceremonies, they will be available again this year at the University Bookstore, and the cost $29.95.
You may be interested to know that we asked the university's Atmospheric Sciences Department for a bona fide weather forecast for today's graduation, and here it is. Cloudy, temperatures reaching the low 60s with a 40% chance of rain. We've had a little bit of all of that through the day so far, and it concludes with yucky June weather. Professor in that department. Barring a real gully washer or some major rain, we will proceed with business as usual. What, after all, is a little rain among friends.
And Jim, as you can see now, we've got some glorious sunshine. It may only last a few minutes, but it's beautiful while it's here. This is, by the way, the third year we've held commencement in the stadium. It's often called the most scenic football stadium in the nation. And it is also the true home of the Wave, which, by the way, is believed to have begun in the third quarter of the Husky-Stanford game in October of 1981. Husky Stadium also will be the home this fall of the Seattle Seahawks. Also, they'll play here the following year. So if you think traffic is a bear today, just stick around.
We've all gotten an earful on that. You won't see the AstroTurf today. The protective covering is put over the turf for this event. Its placement this year, however, is more aesthetic than protective. On Tuesday, the turf will be removed and a new surface will be put down.
And it's the newest product of its kind. It's actually known as field turf. It's made out of plastic, but it looks and feels like grass. It doesn't need mowing, which would be really good news for a lot of the male householders around this area. Also, though, it does not come cheap. The tab for the new turf is nearly $1 million. It'll be in place for the Seahawks opening exhibition game, August 5th.
We may have time to touch on some stadium trivia later in our broadcast. It's a very interesting story. In a kind of related note, the big screen will be in use again this year for our graduation ceremonies. It will give graduates and our guests a veritable close-up of this event. The Huskytron, as it's officially known, measures 23 by 42 feet. It is the largest video board in college football.
This event is, for the most part, unrehearsed, so getting all the participants, that's over 5,000 all told, in the right seat at the right time is a real challenge for faculty members who act as commencement marshals. And to help the volunteers sort things out, we made a training video a few years ago. And the producers of today's broadcast thought you might like to see a rapid action version of that tape.
The graduates line up according to their college or school, and then they're off, led by special guests and faculty, represented here by what one of our more waggish producers has called the Purple Coneheads. Distinguished guests head for the stage and, once there, sit down. Next in line are the doctoral students, decked out in purple and gold, happy to follow a commencement marshal seen here as a sort of blue ping-pong ball along the properly numbered path to the right aisle and eventually their correct seat. A process depicted on our tape as something of a slow-motion pinball game. Master degree candidates continue the process. The last to enter, and to the applause of all, the undergraduates of the class of 2000. And to all, our congratulations.
Well, there is something to be said for brevity. We are now back live to our coverage of Commencement 2000 from the University of Washington in Seattle. The commencement crew spends weeks setting the stage for this event, and as you can see, they really do a remarkable job. The flowers, these are chrysanthemums, by the way, have become a tradition at this event. They are ordered from California in early February. They arrive in the Northwest on the Monday before graduation, and they're pampered and watered extensively to assure that they are in full bloom for the commencement ceremony.
Well, they're in bloom all right. They look a little chilly today.
They do look a little chilly. They look like they would love some more sun.
Just arranging all these pots, flowers is a major job. It takes 6 people a full day to put all the pots in their proper place. That there, 6 people have to move something like, I think, 1,200 of these pots. And you should know the flowers never go to waste. When commencement is over, they're donated to area hospitals.
The logistics for all of graduation are really complicated. In fact, planning for the event begins in September. They're choosing speakers, various award winners, arranging emergency facilities, planning transit and parking. It all requires considerable thought and time. And we, of course, we like to think of it as time very well spent.
Indeed. Now to our table of contents. After today's graduates are seated, philosophy professor Ron Moore, who is the marshal for this event, opens the ceremony. The national anthem follows. The members of the Board of Regents will be introduced, and then the awards for Graduation 2000 will be presented.
And some of those include this year's distinguished teachers and distinguished staff members, along with the Public Service and Recognition Awards, the Presidential Medalist, and the Brotman Awards for Instructional Excellence at the undergraduate level will be presented. And finally, the Alumna Summa Laude Dignata will be singled out. That's the highest honor the university can bestow on a graduate. In this case, the graduate is Rita Colwell, and she's director of the National Science Foundation.
A little later on, you will meet Robert Pinsky, who is today's commencement speaker. Pinsky is the 39th Poet Laureate of the U.S. If you watch the NewsHour on public television with any regularity, you have seen and heard his work. Interestingly, he began his artistic career as a saxophone player, a jazz player, but he switched to poetry in college.
You know, Jim, some critics say that Pinsky uses language the way a jazz musician uses melody, inventing harmonies out of the disharmonious. He describes the responsibility of the artist as twofold: to continue the art, but also to change the terms of the art.
Spoken like a true jazz musician.
That's me.
Well, our processional continues. It may be a lengthy event this year, given the number of participants. We should have everyone seated and ready to bring in the presidential party in another 20 minutes or so.
And as we mentioned earlier, yesterday afternoon, UW-Tacoma held its commencement exercises.
This is some edited video of that event. Again, this year graduation was held in the Tacoma Dome and drew lots of friends and family members. The Tacoma campus opened in 1991 with 176 students. This year, over 500 students took part in commencement. It should be safe to say that these students were just as anxious to put school behind them as their Seattle counterparts are today. The speaker for Tacoma's graduation was Jenny Gregory, Executive Director of the Campfire Girls and Boys Orca Council. She is a social worker, an emergency medical technician, and a pastor. She's worked on homeless and hunger issues and disaster relief services. And if that weren't enough, she has also deep personal interest in motorcycles and fly fishing. Here now, a portion of her remarks.
You know, they don't call it commencement for nothing. You stand at the front end of some marvelous opportunities in your life. How can you realize great success, and what is success anyway? The definition of success can be found not only in what you do and what you acquire, it can also be found in who you are. That is what I want to speak to you about this evening. I'd like to share the recipe that I've used for my own journey, and it's comprised of 5 C's. The first one, have connections. You can't imagine how pleased I was to meet Mr. Gates. But that's not the kind of connection I'm making reference to. The singular most important connection a successful person has is to their higher power. Realize that you are not alone. Someone with a capital S is smarter, wiser, and far more capable, ultimately in charge. I call him God, you might call him something else, but having an awareness that that connection exists for you will allow you to stay relaxed but purposeful. The other type of connection that is critical is our connection to each other. It's called being connected to the human race, and it might look like this. You would actually know your neighbor's name. You wouldn't be afraid to talk to a teenager on the street. The homeless person and the mayor, both are your brothers. No one is better than the next. Circumstances may seek to divide us from each other, and it is our responsibility to hold on to the connections. We all hear a different beat, but to acknowledge that we each have drums on which the beat is pounded out is what helps to make the connection powerful and lasting. To truly care and to have the power that that connection affords us can transcend many of the difficulties we all face.
Would that we had time to go through Gregory's concluding C's, identified as commitment, character, class, and her conclusion on which she had this to say. Life is not a rehearsal. Don't waste it. Make the best of the time you have gobs of fun, live a full life, do it with the C connections, commitment, character, class. They lead to the conclusion that will be nothing short of commendable. The comments of Junie Gregory, Executive Director of the Campfire Girls and Boys Club Orca Council, yesterday's commencement speaker at UWT.
You know, Jim, the Tacoma campus has come a long way in the last decade. It's located in the heart of downtown Tacoma, just across the street from the Washington State Historical Society Museum.
It is Truly an attractive place, housed in some refurbished Victorian-era brick buildings that have received a number of architectural awards for the way in which they have been refurbished. If you find yourself in that neighborhood, by all means, visit the campus. You'll like it.
And next fall, UW Bothell moves into its new campus. The construction phase has been underway for several years now, and things are finally beginning to take shape.
Hemmed in by Highway 522 on one side and Interstate 405 on another, on an old homestead farm near the Kings-Snohomish County line, an experiment has been taking shape. It began in 1986 when the state legislature authorized the University of Washington to study the need for regional campuses of the state's universities. A groundbreaking ceremony in May of 1998 officially started construction of the new UW-Bothell campus. The experiment enters an exciting new phase when the new campus opens to students in the fall of 2000. For the first time in Washington, a 4-year institution will be sharing its campus with a 2-year community college. Cascadia Community College was created in 1994 by the state legislature. Until now, it has existed only on paper. When school starts in September, it will become a reality. The two institutions will maintain distinct identities and academic programs. Together, they will emphasize the utilization of technology to deliver quality higher education to more people. The combined student population is expected to be 2,800. The campus is designed to serve what are called 3-point students. That is, students who go to work, go to school, and go home. The site was once the Boone Truly Ranch. The original owner, Benjamin Boone, was a relative of pioneer Daniel Boone. It's almost 130 acres in size. At its high point, there is a steep glacial ridge shaded by mature trees. Below lies a large, flat valley. The campus buildings wrap around the hillside, looking down on an open floodplain. North Creek once meandered through the 60 acres of wetlands. The environmental goal of the new campus is to restore the wetlands and the creek. Plans allow for reestablishment of the creek with more than 1,100 feet in added length and 2,000 feet of secondary channels. A canopy of trees, new will be reintroduced along the stream banks to restore the natural environment. This will create a slow-moving, cool stream that is expected to attract improved salmon runs and other wildlife. 2 boardwalks through the wetlands will enhance the learning experience for the students and public. And we are back to our live coverage of Graduation 2000 from University of Washington, Seattle. The site is Husky Stadium, and a gorgeous site it is. The program presented as a public service by UWTV.
And remember, there is a lot of information about all 3 UW campuses available on our website. We always encourage you to visit that site.
Some of the students you see here actually graduated yesterday from the School of Nursing. This year, the school awarded 68 bachelor degrees, 103 master degrees, and 16 doctorates. Some of these new graduates will be introduced later in this event. The school has been selected as the top nursing school in the nation for the last 14 years. The nursing profession is changing dramatically. It's attracting some unusual and very gifted students who are involved in the kinds of work and research that will likely touch the lives of many of us.
It's often referred to, Jim, as the science of caring, and that's really an appropriate description. And while we're on that topic, it should be noted that the nursing program and the School of Medicine are highly regarded around Washington State and the Pacific Northwest. Many, in fact, probably most healthcare professionals in this part of the nation got and continue to get their training through these schools. The university's outreach projects have also become models for medical and nursing schools around the nation.
One of those is certainly worth mentioning at this juncture. It's attracting a lot of attention in the university district particularly. Our neighborhood is home to many homeless adolescents. The School of Nursing is part of a group that operates a street clinic for these individuals. It brings health care to the people rather than the other way around. Those involved in the care say street kids, particularly young women, are the most hidden of all people on the streets and the most difficult to reach. The street clinic has reached them, at least some of them, and it seems likely that it too will become yet another model for the nation.
The medical center also has a national reputation for combining solid research with practical application. There's one new project in which the center is involved right now. It almost sounds like something out of science fiction. Researchers there are attempting to grow human heart tissue. Eventually, they hope their work will enable scientists to grow a fully functional human heart.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is.
There's a lot riding on that research, of course, in this nation alone. Only 2,300 hearts are available for transplant each year. That means that every year 50,000 people who meet the strict criteria for potential heart transplants never get the transplant. They die for the want of available organs, so the stakes for this one are very, very high. Healthcare, research, teaching, and work done at the medical facilities associated with the University of Washington affect a huge geographical area. The UW is the medical school for 5 states: Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. The acronym for all this is WWAMI. The university's partnership with these states began about 30 years ago and has developed health training, residency, education, and assistance to rural hospitals throughout this whole nation.
And I think it's really remarkable and commendable that well over half of the medical school graduates enter primary care residencies. That means they train to become family doctors. The magazine U.S. News and World Report has, by the way, named this school the #1 primary care medical school in the country.
Deservedly so. That school, along with Harborview Medical Center, the university's own medical center, and the university's physician clinics, are nationally renowned for their contributions to biomedical research, clinical care, and medical education. Just in case you didn't know, birthplace of Seattle's Medic One program, every city in the nation has picked up on that idea. It is no doubt something that has touched the lives of many of us, probably a lot of us who are right here in this stadium today.
And if not, at this point, almost assuredly it will touch their lives at some point if they continue to live here. As you probably well know, Jim, graduation ceremonies are steeped in history. Universities go back to the 12th century. Today you'll see variations on some of the garb worn in those early halls of academia. Actually, caps and gowns were practical clothing in places noted for cold and damp environments. But even then, the clothing was colorful, and of course you'll see some of the same things here today. The colors and the clothing styles actually are symbolic.
And we're seeing a lot of variations on the theme. Students receiving bachelor's and master's degrees are wearing the traditional black. Their headgear, called for very obvious reasons, a mortarboard, has a tassel that hangs on the left side. The undergraduate students, the color of the tassel denotes the school or the college conferring their degree. If you see a blue tassel, you will be looking at a business major. An orange tassel is associated with engineering. In all, there are about 20 different colors. The most common is white, conferred by the largest of all the colleges, the College of Arts and Sciences.
And those wearing what might be called the more designer outfits, the more colorful garb, are advanced degree candidates and university faculty members. You can identify them by the hoods attached to their gowns. The colors vary for master's degree candidates, something similar to what Jim just described in the undergraduate tassels.
Occasionally, you will see a hood of purple and gold. When you do, know that you are looking at a UW doctoral degree candidate wearing appropriately the university colors and the official UW tam. Faculty attire is always very colorful. Our faculty members have graduated from colleges and universities all over the world, and they bring their colors with them.
Now, we all know graduates are supposed to be creative thinkers, and you'll note that many members of the class of 2000 have done their own variations on cap and gown theme, and that usually will express their own creativity. You'll see maybe some fruit salads, a hard hat. I've seen a Kermit the Frog here. Floral displays are always popular too. You know, I even saw a student with a Thanks Dad sign on.
Rubber duckies are occasionally in order
And
as
that
well.
too.
Well, the students are just about organized and seated, and I would imagine within just a few minutes the presidential party will be ready to come out and get things officially underway on this, the 125th Commencement from the University of Washington, coming to you from Husky Stadium on UWTV. The presidential party is on its way, which means all of today's commencement candidates are in place. And we are just a couple of minutes away from opening statements, national anthem, lots of awards, and a commencement address that should be a dandy.
And leading the way, as you'll see, is the University Marshal Ron Moore, who has presided over this event for more than a decade. Commencement is one of the rare events where the university mace is displayed, and that's a club-looking item. You'll see the gentleman, Ron Moore, carrying that right now. The mace was a medieval weapon of war, and this one, of course, is entirely ceremonial.
I suppose we can take comfort at that.
We certainly can.
It's beautifully made, incidentally. Rosewood, gold, and silver inlay. The head of the mace has replicas of the university's seal, a Denny Hall and Drumheller fountain, among other things. And it's also used in the Tacoma and the Bothell graduation ceremonies.
And our ceremony is about to begin, so if you haven't found one, find a comfortable seat. You can applaud, you can laugh as you see fit, and join with us in wishing the graduating class of 2000 the very best.
The commencement exercises of the University of Washington will be opened with the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Jay McManus, a graduate student in the School of Music. The audience will please rise. Please be seated. It is my pleasure to present Dr. Richard L. McCormick, President of the University of Washington, who will preside over these exercises.
Welcome to the 125th Commencement Ceremony of the University of Washington. Commencement ceremonies are an expression of academic traditions going back hundreds of years and they symbolize some of the most fundamental values of our civilization, most particularly the pursuit of truth, the preservation of freedom, and the cultivation of a climate of civility. These ceremonies are also festive, celebrating the commencement of new activities and challenges in the lives of the graduates, as well as the successful conclusion of one phase of their formal education. The diversity of this university is nearly as striking as its distinction, and the graduates today are completing academic courses of study that reflect the complexity of this society and the intellectual concerns of our students and faculty. I am honored, therefore, to be the first to congratulate formally the degree award recipients and to welcome all of you this afternoon. These graduates should be very proud of themselves. Us are proud of them. It is appropriate, therefore, that we all stand up, everyone, including the graduates, and applaud the first graduating class of the 21st century, the class of 2000. And now I think the graduates should applaud their families and friends who have supported them through the years. Please be seated. Some statistics may be of interest to you. Over the past academic year, 6,200 students have earned the bachelor's degree, and more than 9,200 new degrees overall have been awarded at the University of Washington. About 53% of the bachelor's and 52% of the master's degrees were earned by women. 57% of the new lawyers are women, as are 50% of the new physicians and 34% of the new dentists. 43% of the PhDs were earned by women. Approximately 4,700 of this year's graduates are participating in today's ceremony, and many others have participated in separate ceremonies in the various schools and colleges of the university. Many graduates are doing both. We are very pleased to have you and your families and friends with us this afternoon. The splendid music you have been listening to during the processional, and which you will be hearing more of later in the program, is being provided for us this afternoon by students from the School of Music's Wind Ensemble under the direction of Professor Timothy Salzman. As you can tell, they are gifted musicians, and we greatly appreciate their participation today. Ultimate responsibility for the University of Washington lies with the members of the Board of Regents, 10 citizens of the state who are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate. These dedicated men and women serve without pay and devote many hours each year to the welfare of our university. 9 of our regents are with us this afternoon, and I would like to introduce them at this time. Please hold your applause until all are introduced. William H. Gates, President of the Board of Regents. Constance Proctor, Vice President of the Board of Regents. John Amaya, our newly appointed student regent and the first undergraduate ever to serve in this capacity. Regent Jeffrey Brotman, Regent Ark Chin, Regent Mari Clack, Regent Gerald Grinstein, Regent Shelley Yap, Regent Cindy Zender, ladies and gentlemen, the regents of the University of Washington. In addition to the regents, we have seated on the platform this afternoon the chief academic and administrative officers of the university, including the provost, whom you will meet in a moment, the vice presidents, the deans of the schools and colleges, who will be introduced in due course, the leadership of the faculty senate, the elected student leadership on campus, the president of the Alumni Association, and faculty members, professors emeriti, and other representatives from the various schools, colleges, and departments of the University of Washington. I would also like to acknowledge the many members of the faculty serving today as commencement marshals. Their names are listed on page 9 of your program. Let me take just a moment to single out two of our vice presidents. This is the final commencement ceremony for Myron Appilato, who has led our Office of Minority Affairs for the past decade. He has worked passionately and effectively to bring minority students to this campus and to ensure their academic success. The strong, vital programs Myron leaves behind will help the university continue to work for diversity and opportunity at a challenging time. Myron, and wish you well. I also want to welcome our new Vice President for University Relations, Jack Farris. But this is not his first UW commencement. 32 years ago, Jack earned a bachelor's degree in sociology here from the department that his father served for many years as professor and chair. Jack returns to academia from a distinguished career in advertising and public relations, and we are very happy to have him back in the family. Jack Farris, welcome home. Now I would like to address a few words to today's graduates. I wish each of you could stand here beside me for a moment, actually you will a little later in the ceremony, and take in the view, a wonderful sea of proud, exuberant faces looking toward the future. There must surely be a little sadness, maybe even a little anxiety out there as well, but I can't see those things from here. Nor can I see behind the sameness of your caps and gowns the rich and complex human tapestry that is actually spread out before us today, woven out of all of the different personal histories, intellectual interests, life paths, hopes, and dreams that you bring to this celebration. This is the nature of a university like this one, with programs in virtually every field of human endeavor and students from around the globe. But despite all your differences, I would guess that you have one thing in common. Each of you has brought here today a kind of ghost, the person you used to be 3 or 5 or more years ago when you first arrived at the University of Washington. You might have been a freshman from Yakima, or a transfer student from Edmonds, or a new PhD student from New York. Look back at that person for a moment. If you and we have done our work well, that earlier self has been challenged, enriched, enlarged, and changed. That is the real value of your education here. Beyond the new stores of knowledge and the professional credentials, that is the real measure of your achievement. Of course, that process will continue for the rest of your lives, but it happens with special intensity and drama during these years you have just completed. It is the great privilege of the University of Washington to be part of that process, to welcome the bright promise you bring as entering students, to teach you with all the rigor and imagination we can muster, to open the door on new possibilities, to work with you through confusions and uncertainties, and then today, to rejoice with you in your accomplishments and proudly send you out into the world. More than you know, you leave behind people who will remember you. You are not the only ones who have been changed by your time here. You have challenged and taught your teachers even as they were teaching you. You have played a part in the constant reshaping of the university itself, as does every generation of students that passes through. You have left a mark. So I hope that through all the twists and turns your lives will take, you will stay connected with the University of Washington. We will always welcome you back. We will always take pride in your victories and achievements. We won't ever remind you of that C in calculus. Today, we become your alma mater, and now you must share with us responsibility for ensuring the future of your university, for keeping it just as rich with opportunity and excellence for the next generation of students as it has been for you. Farewell, and in the words of the old Irish blessing, may the wind always be at your back. The Chief Academic and Chief Budget Officer of the University of Washington is Provost Lee Huntsman, who will present this year's Teaching and Public Service Awards. Provost Huntsman.
In order to strengthen the university's dedication to teaching excellence, the university each year presents Distinguished Teaching Awards to faculty and Excellence in Teaching Awards to graduate teaching assistants. 7 University of Washington faculty and 2 graduate students with elected to receive awards this year. I will ask them to stand and remain standing until all are introduced. The recipients of the Distinguished Teaching Awards are Gerald J. Baldesty, Professor of Communications, Stephen Gloyd, Associate Professor of Health Services, Robin L. White, Associate Professor of Zoology, Gojong Chow, Assistant Professor of Materials Science and Engineering, and Stanley Chernikoff, Senior Lecturer in Geological Sciences. The recipient of the Graduate Mentor Award is David Notkin, Professor of Computer Science and Engineering. The recipient of the S. Sterling Monroe Public Service Award is Deborah Hicks Wiegand, Senior Lecturer in Chemistry. The recipients of the Excellence in Teaching Awards, who could not be with us this afternoon, are Scott Harding, Teaching Assistant in Social Work, and Stephanie Tomlinson, Teaching Assistant in Speech Communication. Selected by a committee of faculty, staff, and students and alumni, the honorees were cited for superior mastery of their disciplines, their ability to transmit knowledge, and their concern for students. We are proud of our teaching faculty, and the honor these recipients receive today is especially precious in the academic community. Please join me in applauding these exceptional teachers. The university also presents an award in recognition of outstanding public service to a university faculty or staff member. This year's recipient is Eugene Edgar, Professor of Special Education in the College of Education. Professor Edgar has spent almost 30 years working on behalf of young people with disabilities. He has given generous service to innumerable public and private agencies, including the King County Association for Retarded Citizens, the Governor's Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, and the National Fathers Network. He is currently helping to adapt the state's new learning assessments to the needs of disabled students. 2 of the projects with which he has been involved have become national models. One, called RX, provides religious education for children with developmental disabilities. The second, called Special Sitters, trains teenagers to care for disabled children. Professor Edgar designed this program, enlisted the Campfire organization as a partner, won federal grant support, and devoted many hours to making the program work. Today, Special Sitters is a national Campfire program and is also established in both Canada and Israel. Professor Edgar has lived the ideals of public service. So, for personal dedication to helping disabled youngsters, for years of effort freely given, and for turning his expertise into humane and imaginative new programs, the University of Washington commends him.
Since 1932, we have presented a medal to the graduating senior who has achieved the most distinguished academic record at the university. Will John Michael McPherson please come forward? That's fine. Mike grew up in Bellingham and graduated from Seaholm High School with a National Merit Scholarship and the State High Jump Championship. At the UW, he has earned 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, 1 in biochemistry and 1 in applied and computational mathematical sciences. From each department, he has won a prize as this year's outstanding graduate. Grades are not the sole determinant of this award. The committee that selects the recipients looks at other things as well, such as the number of honors and upper division courses. But grades are important, with a grade point average of 3.92. He was the sophomore class academic medalist, has been a fixture on the Dean's List and was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. For the past year, as a Mary Gates Scholar, he has done research in the lab of zoology Professor Tom Daniel, who calls him a student of rare depth and creativity and inspiration to his teachers. Mike has also been an outstanding student athlete, a 3-year letterman in track and field. He has placed near the top in several Pac-10 decathlon events. After graduation, Mike will explore Siberia on a travel grant. He plans eventually to do graduate work, continuing at the intersection of biology and mathematics. It is my pleasure to present you, Mike, this medal in recognition of your outstanding academic achievement. At this time, I would also like to recognize those students who were candidates for the President's Medal by virtue of academic performance in the top 0.5% of all graduating seniors in their respective colleges. These students, along with the President's Medalist, are today graduating with the university's highest baccalaureate honor, summa cum laude. Their names are listed on page 12 of the commencement program. Also listed are the names of students who are graduating magna cum laude and cum laude. Since 1938, the university and the Alumni Association have presented an award to a former University of Washington student whose work has attained national or international prominence. The Alumna Summa Laude Dignata Award, which means alumna worthy of the highest praise, is the highest honor bestowed by the University of Washington. The recipient is selected by a committee of university faculty and alumni. It gives me great pleasure today to add to the long and distinguished list of individuals who have received this award the name of Rita Rossi Caldwell, pioneering microbiologist and director of the National Science Foundation. Dr. Caldwell, please join me at the lectern. In 1961, Rita Caldwell became the first woman to earn a PhD at the University of Washington School of Oceanography. At a time when science was not notably hospitable to women, it was sheer stubbornness, she says, that got her here. But Dr. Caldwell found a true mentor in UW Professor John Liston, and her work here in marine microbiology was the beginning of an illustrious scientific career. In the 1970s, as a professor at the University of Maryland, Dr. Caldwell started investigating the bacterium that causes cholera. Over more than 2 decades, her research transformed our understanding of that disease. Combining epidemiology and ecology, her work has been honored worldwide and promises new ways of predicting and controlling cholera epidemics. Dr. Caldwell founded and directed the University of Maryland Biotechnology Institute, and in 1998, President Clinton named her director of the National Science Foundation, the first woman and one of the few biologists ever to hold that post. She has won increased funding for an ambitious agenda that includes the study of biocomplexity, a term she invented. This spring, Dr. Caldwell's scientific peers honored her with election to the prestigious National Academy of Sciences. For remarkable gifts, tenacity of purpose, and extraordinary achievements in science, her alma mater honors Rita Rossi Caldwell as its 2000 Alumna Summa Laude Dignata. The University of Washington Alumni Association plays a vital role in the life of the university and provides a continuing link between our graduates and their alma mater. The association also provides essential support for the to introduce Jeff Vernon, class of 1965, president of the University of Washington Alumni Association.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick. On behalf of nearly 300,000 alumni worldwide, congratulations and welcome aboard. You got into this great university because you were good, through it because you got better. What you have learned in the classroom and in your daily life here as a student, the people you have met and the knowledge you have gained, all those experiences have prepared you for what lies ahead. As you begin the next chapter of your life, don't forget to look back and don't forget to come back. The University of Washington and your Alumni Association are here for you. The opportunities are endless. Seminars, performances, travel, homecoming, athletic events, supporting and advising your school. We'll keep a light on for you. Especially relevant to your lifelong connection to the UW is the Alumni Association's Expanded Career Services Program. Visit our website to discover how we can assist you in all stages of your career development, from networking and job hunting to researching alternative career decisions. You will be linked to a wide range of resources that give you the competitive edge of an affinity program built around the active involvement of other UW alumni. Just as you need this university to move ahead and realize your dreams, your university needs you. Now you are one of the caretakers of this marvelous institution. Together we must work to ensure future generations of students have the same opportunity you and I did, an opportunity to experience all that only a great university can offer. To maintain and add to the UW's greatness, we need you to get involved and stay involved. Many of you are already givers through our senior gift campaign. Thank you so much. You have opened doors and provided opportunities that some students would not have had. We are most appreciative that you are beginning your life as alumni by making a gift to your alma mater. An alma mater is more than just a memory. The University of Washington will always be your university, no matter where life takes you. It is a connection that lasts forever. I am privileged to speak for nearly 300,000 of your closest friends who wish you success, however you define it, beyond your wildest dreams.
Student government is an important component of the governance of this institution, and its leadership is called on regularly to represent student views on a wide variety of issues at the university. I am pleased to introduce the president of the Associated Students of the University of Washington, Ryan Biava.
Thank you, President McCormick. I have a few things I want to say, but I first want to congratulate all of the graduates. I think a round of applause would be in order. Thank you. Congratulations. I also first want to thank everyone who's on this stage. They do a lot for this university. It wouldn't run without them. They care deeply about this university. I want to acknowledge them and have all the graduates, if we will, thank them for all the work they do. When I look at all of us and try to think what it is we've been doing here for the last 4 or 5 years, perhaps even longer, what strikes me is the vast range of different types of experiences we've had. It's easy to walk around the campus every day and not really realize what it is that's going on around us, really. When I look back to my first class, I know that when I sat there that morning, I couldn't have guessed what 4 years would get me. But I found out a week ago today, last Friday, very clearly what it did get me, and I'd like to talk about that just a bit. But let me back up just for a second. I came here, at first daunted at the size of the university, thinking I'd have to bring binoculars with me to class to be able to see the professor talk. And I had no idea what a student really could make out of the university if they wanted to. Thankfully, as I hope many of you found out, UW can be an amazing experience where we are challenged to learn and encouraged to take a shot. Actually, that's probably one of the things that I'll miss the most about being an undergraduate, is the range of things that we are able to think about in a day, in a week, and in our career. Where else can you really talk about philosophers in 1 hour, geology the next, and be studying a foreign language later on in the day? But for me, and for I suspect most of you, you've probably spent a good deal of time in the last several weeks saying goodbye to most of your friends. Now, I'm tempted to say it reminds me of high school, but it really doesn't in a way. In high school, you knew people and you were friends with them because maybe you had a class with them. Here, it's much different. You can choose to be involved with certain activities, as I have done, and I hope that as you have done as well. So I went to a graduation goodbye party last Friday, and assembled there were 30 of the most amazing people I've ever had the privilege of knowing and attending classes and attending activities with. I've spent anywhere from 1 to 4 years learning what makes them happy, what makes them angry, learning how to communicate with them without even saying a word. and it was a great evening, but then it was over. Now, I don't know any simpler way to say it than this. Despite all of the grades that I've gotten, all of the hard achievements that we've achieved that seemed so important at the time, what I'll remember more than anything are the people I knew and what I learned from them. Each person there last Friday had taught me something about what it means to be a person living in our society and a student, and what it means to be part of a university. I hope that as you look back, you can identify people as well who have been there for you and have changed the way you view the world. Some of my favorite moments as an undergraduate have been those when a friend said something that made me question the very foundation of my beliefs. In the end, what other way is there for hoping to really move forward as a person? I think that there's a real danger in thinking we've got it all figured out. In fact, looking at the way many of the leaders in our society talk today, I think it's one of the most present dangers we face. We all know that we as a generation have many challenges to deal with. My experiences with my peers here at UW have convinced me that our success will depend on our ability to keep an open mind in our approaches. It will be a huge challenge, however, to keep that open mind once we get more into the real world that we've been warned about since we were children. I hope we give it a shot, though, because the person sitting next to you even today might be of a different religion, nationality, sexual orientation, or culture, and we owe it to each other to treat one another with respect. It's too easy to think that things will work themselves out. I hope we won't fall into the trap of thinking that it's someone else's problem, because despite our differences, we all know what it's like to face difficulty. We all know we should help others, and I hope that we try to live that in every way that we can. So finally, I hope that you will remember Drumheller Fountain, Red Square, and the Quad with as much fondness for UW as I will, and that you'll be blessed with a group of people who will both support and challenge you to become a better person throughout the rest of your life. That, to me, seems to be the best goal that one could strive for. So congratulations again, and best of luck.
This afternoon's commencement speaker is Robert Pinsky, who has just completed an unprecedented 3-year term as the Poet Laureate of the United States. Mr. Pinsky grew up in Long Branch, New Jersey, graduated from Rutgers University, and earned a PhD in English at Stanford University. He has been writing and teaching ever since. His poetry has won high praise and numerous awards. His 1996 collection, The Figured Wheel, was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize and received 2 other important awards. His prize-winning translation of Dante's Inferno became a bestseller. He has just published a new book of poems called Jersey Rain. Currently a teacher in the graduate writing program at Boston University, he is a contributor to the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer on PBS and is poetry editor of the online journal Slate. In 1997, the Library of Congress named Robert Pinsky Poet Laureate. He soon launched the Favorite Poem Project, inviting Americans everywhere to submit their best-loved poems to be recorded for posterity. The project took Mr. Pinsky to 20 cities public readings. Last November, he published an anthology of the poems and letters and is now preparing an audio and video archive for the Library of Congress. Earlier this year, Mr. Pinsky visited the University of Washington to help us celebrate a gift to the UW's highly ranked creative writing program. It was a pleasure to have him with us on that occasion and a distinct pleasure to have him here today. Please welcome the Poet Laureate of the United States, Robert Pinsky.
Thank you all very much. I will speak to you briefly and from the heart. I'll try to speak to you about what I think we are doing here today and how what we are doing fits into American culture and perhaps into a context even larger than that. I'll try to use the example of my own work. We are wearing very funny garments, especially funny hats. We marched in behind a mace. A mace, not a commonly found American object. We are glad it didn't rain. And your applause indicates we are glad because it means that the graduates can walk up here one at a time and receive a ceremonial object. This is perhaps the most elaborate of all secular rituals in America. Compared to this, when we inaugurate a president, it's like getting a driver's license. What does this elaborate ritual mean? In the program, it analyzes the code of symbolic colors, lore that almost no one remembers or understands. The two usual answers to this question are, it's because the graduates have worked so hard. Possibly so. The other answer is, the families have sacrificed, sometimes taking out extra mortgages and loans so that this could happen. Those are good answers, but I don't think they're adequate. I propose to you that what these hats and costumes symbolize is the two great values by which we judge the adequacy of any tribe, any people, any human community. The two basic, fundamental functions of a community. First, most obviously, caring for the young. The human animal needs care. If you don't care for the young, we die out. Secondly, and this is what I want to talk to you about, honoring the old ones, meaning not only the aged, but including them, but meaning all the wisdom of the dead. In a famous classical tag, the human animal has pathetic claws for weapons. Its teeth are almost useless. Its hide is puny. Even its best athletes cannot run very well compared to other species. An indifferent swimmer and climber, it cannot fly at all. Yet, it has thrived. It has thrived because it has evolved means of communicating and cooperating, not only with its peers, horizontally, but also vertically with its ancestors and its descendants. It has evolved ways to get from the old ones information, not only about where the best food is at what time of year, not only means of defense and shelter, but what are the best marriage customs, burial customs, child-rearing customs. I submit to the graduates, you are not the most important people involved in this ritual today. You are not the most important people here today. Anything you embody in the way of learning about chemistry, poetry, archaeology, mathematics, computer science, music, Asian languages, etc. You got from people of my generation, and we got it from people, many of whom, most of whom, are now dead. You are important, not in yourselves, but because after we are dead, it is up to you to convey these things to people who may not be born yet. The dead ones are more important than you or us. The ones to come are more important than you or us. You are conduits. I remember when I was in grade school, they would show us movies supplied by industries. The Miracle of Paper, or Meet the Incredible Mr. Glass, or The Astonishing Adventure of Aluminum. And the movies would show elaborate processes of paper making, making of glass and fiberglass and fabric, the aluminum industry. And I would look at those diagrams and the people in white smocks with clipboards, and I would think, when the grown-ups die, there's no way we kids are going to be able to do that stuff. I thought to myself, I know these kids. There's no way they're going to learn this stuff. It will all fall apart. We won't have petroleum, glass, paper, the rest of it. The amazing fact is, we not only have those processes, somebody in my generation did learn them, we actually improved them, refined them, advanced them. If you win a Nobel Prize, if you found an amazing corporation, if you have high, if you cure diseases, that will still be less important work than your contribution to what this ritual symbolizes. It is less important than the carrying on, preserving, and passing on of what you get and what you someday, whether you think about it or not, either give or do not. A thought experiment I use to think about this is to picture an American teenager. I invite you to picture a kid 14 or 15 years old. Give the kid a gender, a race, grooming, certain kind of clothes. Put this individual on a city street. Imagine that child. Then as the next step, put into that person's hands a musical instrument case. I submit to you, do you not cheer up? Don't you feel a little bit better? What does the case symbolize? Application to something difficult. Desire or ability to create beauty. Cooperation with others. Willingness to work at something that is infinite, can never be totally mastered. And perhaps above all, use of the past. Music, poetry, science, the computer, none of it was invented by anybody you know. It goes back through thousands of nameless people. If it exists after us, it's because of what we celebrate today. I promised you that I would say something about this in the American context. The word for what I've been trying to describe is culture. American culture has a specific importance because we are not one people by means of blood. We do not share one blood. If we are a people, we're a people by memory. It has been said that the United States is a great nation, but not yet a great people. What does that mean? Our military power, our economic power, our great works of art, Dickinson, Whitman, Duke Ellington, Buster Keaton, John Ford, Wallace Stevens. Those works are great. Our great national documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution with the Bill of Rights, are great. But who are the people who remember those things? If we do not remember them, we are not a people. So the project of culture is particularly vital in any nation that is defined not by blood as a people, but by memory. I'll tell you some models of American culture that are inadequate. The Mandarin model, an upper class that possesses high, valuable European things, and a mass that supports that class. Our cultural achievements are too dynamic. Any such, our mass culture is too powerful. The Mandarin model is swamped. A Philistine model in which the mass culture is enough and all there is. That is inadequate because culture is memory. And Buster Keaton, Duke Ellington, the popular or mass culture of their day are now preserved in museums and universities, where they wait to see if there's any rap music, sitcom, commercial worthy of joining them in those archives. Another model of American culture is the technocratic. All we have for our culture is our gadgets, the wonders of digital imagery. Countering that model is the tremendous human appetite for what is on an individual human scale. And beautiful though the digital medium is, and I love it, I like it a lot. I adore my VCR and my computer. It is by its nature on a mass scale. It is not like the musical instrument case. The only possible answer about American culture and what its model is that, like our great works, I would lead with jazz, it is still being improvised. We are still in the process of becoming a people. In this context, the racial divide is only one egregious example of the ongoing process of making American culture. In the American phrase, we're working on it. We are still working on it. I'll close by telling you in a few sentences about my experience of working on it. I invited Americans to write to me and tell me the name of a poem that they loved and would like to read aloud. The first 50 videos shot on this coast and the East Coast have been televised on the NewsHour. I'm confident that I'll raise the funds to shoot another 50. With almost no advertising, I received letters from 18,000 Americans before I had to ask people to stop because I couldn't handle the volume. I got letters saying, "My mother taught me this poem. I got it by heart. She asked me to recite it to her as she was dying. So I did." Some of you saw on TV Pove Chin, the high school student in California who read Langston Hughes's poem Minstrel Man about smiling on the inside, being sad on the inside. She told the story of her parents who saw two of their children in Oz as they fled Cambodia. And she says, "And my granny too." Then she says, before reading the poem for a second time, "And they split us up." She was not born yet, but she used the first person pronoun. "They split us up and shot my brothers." Then she reads the Langston Hughes poem. In Pove Chin's use of the word us, I find another model of the ritual that we're engaged in today. I'll read you a very short poem and say one more sentence. The poem is one that I received many, many letters about. It was written by Robert Hayden, the first African American to hold my present post. The letters we print in the anthology are from a janitor, a high school teacher in Pennsylvania, a legislative researcher in Maryland, a man who talks about his father as being harsh, son of a policeman. The last letter is from a woman in Kansas who writes 6 words about the poem. Those of you who make art, how would you like someone to write this about something you did? She wrote, "Broke my heart and restored it." Here's the poem, Those Winter Sundays, by Robert Hayden. Those winter Sundays. Sundays, too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house, speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of loves austere, and lonely offices. President McCormick, regents, officers and faculty of the university, graduates, parents, I offer you Robert Hayden's poem of the imperfect, austere care of one generation for another. I offer it to you as a model and as a tribute of congratulations to the class of 2000. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to present the various degrees to all candidates. The audience is requested to remain in their seats until the conclusion of today's ceremony. Candidates for the doctor's degree in the School of Medicine would be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Daniel Hunt.
It is my honor to present to you a list of the 147 candidates for the degree Doctor of Medicine. I recommend that all who have completed the requirements for this degree from the School of Medicine be awarded their doctoral degree. These candidates have been honored previously, and many have gone on to their postgraduate training. Those that are here today will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
Candidates for doctor's degree in the School of Dentistry will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Paul Robertson.
Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present a list of doctoral candidates from the School of Dentistry. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements be awarded their doctoral degree. These graduates were honored in separate ceremonies. Thank you very much.
Candidates for Juris Doctor degrees in the School of Law, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Roland Hjorth.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present a list of the 152 candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor with the recommendation that each who has fulfilled the requirements be awarded that degree. Ceremonies to honor these graduates will be held elsewhere. The law graduates participating in this ceremony will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
Candidates for Doctor of Pharmacy degrees in the School of Pharmacy will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Stanley Weber.
Mr. President, it is an honor and privilege to present you a list of the 90 candidates for the degree Doctor of Pharmacy. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Pharmacy be awarded their doctoral degrees. These graduates were honored previously in separate ceremonies held elsewhere. The Doctor of Pharmacy candidates will please come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
On behalf of the Board of Regents and the faculties of the respective schools, I am pleased to confer upon these candidates the degrees of Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Dental Surgery, Juris Doctor, or Doctor of Pharmacy.
Candidates for doctoral degrees will be presented by Dean Marshall Landolt of the Graduate School.
Mr. President, here with us today are those candidates who have completed all qualifications for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Education, or Doctor of Musical Arts. Will the doctoral candidates please rise? Mr. President, on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the graduate faculty, I'm pleased and honored to present to you these candidates for the highest degrees awarded by the university. The names of those receiving doctoral degrees are listed in the commencement program, along with the titles of their dissertations and the names of their faculty supervisors. I recommend that these candidates be awarded their respective doctoral degrees.
On behalf of the Board of Regents and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Education, or Doctor of Musical Arts. Congratulations. You have achieved high academic distinction, and this university salutes you. You will be presented today with a memento of this graduation exercise. Please come forward.
Roman Werner Hillemeyer, Doctor of Philosophy.
Caroline Elise Galacci, History.
Frederick Ulysses Bueller, Doctorate of Philosophy, Chemical Engineering.
Timothy B. Abe, Doctor of Philosophy, Geographical Sciences.
Johann E. Shafizadeh, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemical Engineering.
Ming Chen Lo, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Sing Woon Lim, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemical Engineering.
Lorne Dwight Johnson, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Judith Ann Brown, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Jeremy Max Piger, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Robin Sue Adams, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Charles Conrad Krusikoff, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Nance Marie Minnick, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Chung Fang Chiu, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Terrence Anton Beck, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Su Ying Yang, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Frederick L. Hamill, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Catherine J. Keller, Doctor of Philosophy, American Studies.
Nia R. Johnson Crowley, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Jacqueline Faisal Shannon, Doctor of Musical Arts.
Susan Thompson Sanders, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Rachel Ellen Scher, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Anne Marie Elfers, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Adam Vance, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature.
Randolph Lowell Jackson, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Gabrielle E. Gallardo, Doctor of Philosophy, Geography.
Michelle J. Malarney, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Harold L. Fossum, Doctor of Philosophy, Geography.
Renee R. Hartman, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
David Ray Abernathy, Doctor of Philosophy, Geography.
Lewa Kathleen Van Shojak, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Brett L. Keeling, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Nina Salcedo Parter, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Ingrid Nilema Ray, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature.
Susan Natasha Beretras, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Laurel A. King, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Junwen Wang, Doctor of Philosophy, Fisheries.
Christine Caroline Newcomb, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature.
Dennis Michael, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Sean David Baker, Doctor of Philosophy, Communications.
Shannon Eileen McRae, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Kristen Claire Engstrand Moran, Doctor of Philosophy, Communication.
Shu Ling Chen, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature.
Marina P. de McVitie, Doctor of Philosophy, Roman Languages and Literature, Spanish.
Pamela G. Ralston, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature, Theory and Criticism.
Teresa Joette May, Doctor of Philosophy, Theater, History and Criticism.
Mary Jane Elliott, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Robert E. Tarleton, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
Gregory Paul Choi, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Ned Blackhawk, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
Vachara Letpiri Aswat, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Bonnie Sue Christensen, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
Titima Jintanawan, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Jennifer Marie Rudolph, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
Tavita Manewan, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Xiao Hong Zhang, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Aik Chendapal, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Jill Karen Wolken, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Smith Sukapanpotharam, Doctor of Philosophy, Industrial Engineering.
Jennifer Lynn Morford, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Gang Liu, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Lisa M. Coyle, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Tyler John Thorpe, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Charis Elizabeth Kubrin, Doctor of Philosophy, Sociology.
James Garnett Droppo, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Anne Isabel Glusker, Doctor of Philosophy, Sociology.
Paul A. Kuntz, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Carl Edward Pate, Doctor of Philosophy, Sociology.
Hailey Song, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Kevin K.G. Mihata, Doctor of Philosophy, Sociology.
Amol Sudhakar Kulkarni, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Thomas John Linneman, Doctor of Philosophy, Sociology.
Sachin Govind Deshpande, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Elizabeth Anna Denoma, Scandinavian Languages and Literature.
Audrey Frances Pearson, Doctor of Philosophy, Ecosystems Analysis.
Anne Greta Sabo, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature, Theory and Criticism.
Hiroaki Ishii, Doctor of Philosophy, Analysis.
Tamara May Okanoki, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Franklin Randolph Knight, Jr., Doctor of Philosophy, Ecosystems Analysis.
Gary Allen John Maintz, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
James Henry Dooley, Doctor of Philosophy, Forest Resources, Forest Engineering.
Wendy Jane Shaw, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
William Ronald Turner, Jr., Doctor of Philosophy, Forest Resources, Economics.
Paul Richard Shipley, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Carolyn Margaret Foley Washburn, Doctor of Philosophy, Fisheries.
John William Tomaszewski, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Michael Thomas Kinnison, Doctor of Philosophy, Fisheries.
Maximiliane Silva Bekel, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Caroline Louise O'Farrell, Doctor of Philosophy, Fisheries.
Simonida Rutar Thurber, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Manfred Thomas Kittle, Doctor of Philosophy, Fisheries.
Eric Alexander Harwood, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Karim Yunus Aydin, Doctorate of Philosophy, Fisheries.
Keith Edward Miller, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
E. Ashley Steele, Doctor of Philosophy, Quantitative Ecology and Resource Management.
Elizabeth Jane Darrow, Doctor of Philosophy, Art History.
Martin Charles Learman, Doctor of Philosophy, Quantitative Ecology and Resource Management.
Margaret Ann Zaho, Doctor of Philosophy, Art History.
Carol Ann Ladd, Doctor of Philosophy, Oceanography.
Gisli Holmar Johannesson, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Abdella Chakawi Manawi, Doctor of Philosophy, Oceanography.
Blas Pedro Uberaga, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Wayman Wong, Doctor of Philosophy, Oceanography.
Bede Pittenger, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Ik Jong Chung, Doctor of Philosophy, Social Welfare.
Mark Philip Giesbühler, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Suzanne Yerian, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Roberto Cabunban Ramos, Jr., Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Mary Kernick, Doctor of Philosophy, Epidemiology.
Andre Thomas Kramer, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Carolyn Ruth Anderman, Doctor of Philosophy, Epidemiology.
Douglas Eugene Davidson, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Ellen Lee Good, Doctor of Philosophy, Epidemiology.
Judith H. Axe, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Allison Jane Rigby, Doctor of Philosophy, Nutritional Sciences.
Diana Margarita Palais, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Suparna Rajan, Nutritional Sciences.
Corina Heron Linden, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Jesse A. Satya, Doctor of Philosophy, Nutritional Sciences.
Niall Fionbara Omer Ku, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Feng Shun She, Doctor of Philosophy, Nutritional Sciences.
Joseph Henri Juppé, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Xiaofeng Yan, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Pathobiology.
Kenneth Gregory Lawson, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Hung Ha Man Trung, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Pathobiology.
Paul Scott Axelrod, Doctor of Philosophy, Political Science.
Karen Marie Rudolph, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Pathobiology.
Raif Majid, Doctor of Philosophy, Atmospheric Science.
Connie Louise Bellin, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Joseph Glenn Schloss, Doctor of Philosophy, Ethnomusicology.
Lori Alice Lohan, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Saeed Tanvir Haider Jaffrey, Doctor of Philosophy, Botany.
Doris M. Butayan, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Jasleen Joel Latayede, Doctor of Philosophy, Clinical Psychology.
Ellen Elizabeth Kavanaugh, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Jennifer Marie Watson, Doctor of Philosophy, Clinical Psychology.
Pamela Kathleen Harden, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Stacy Ellen Prince, Doctor of Philosophy, Clinical Psychology.
Margaret Wooding Baker, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Lorraine J. Martinez, Clinical Psychology, Doctor of Philosophy.
Joanne Elizabeth Solchaney, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Amy Jia Mei Tsai, Doctor of Philosophy, Psychology.
Bernadine K. Flynn, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Charles G. Manning, Doctor of Philosophy, Psychology.
Viva Jane Tapper, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Thane R. Stearns, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Jin Son Lee, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Julie Elizabeth Prabel, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Suna Kim, Doctor of Philosophy, Social Welfare.
Jean Ellen Yeasting, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Brian J. Dudgeon, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Laura Eileen Kuske, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
David Ardell Basca, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Peter James Kovidra, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Wei Fong Lee, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Julia Elizabeth Menton, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature.
Matthew Sidney Kimball, Doctor of Philosophy, Ecosystem Sciences.
Jennifer S. Lona, Doctor of Philosophy, Linguistics.
Chin Lee, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Philip Rourke, Doctor of Philosophy, Philosophy.
Carrie Jarda Cornish, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Christy R. G. Hendrickson, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Moon Hon Lee, Doctor of Philosophy, Materials Science and Engineering.
Lynn Marie Amon, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Jonathan Anton Salem, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Wei Feng Chen, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Pascal Stork, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Michael Wayne Moore, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Christopher Joseph Zappa, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Yon Shin Kim, Doctor of Musical Arts, Piano.
Haiming Yu, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Yoon Suk Choi, Doctor of Musical Arts, Piano.
Jong Tae Yuk, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Jin Min Song, Doctor of Musical Arts, Piano.
Chung Nong Yung, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Stephen Gerald McCollum, Doctor of Musical Arts, Choral Conducting.
Yi Ming Pao, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Seon Ju Kim, Doctor of Musical Arts, String Performance.
Edwin Ewald Forster, Doctor of Philosophy, Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Wu Shen Chi, Doctor of Musical Arts, Woodwinds Performance.
Derek Edward Lang, Doctor of Philosophy, Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Lisa Ann Nagaoka, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Antoine Dung Nyo, Doctor of Philosophy, Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Angela Ray Lindsay, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Melanie Irene Plett, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Renee Lynette Robinette, Doctor of Philosophy, Psychology.
John Christopher Oakley, Doctor of Philosophy, Physiology and Biophysics.
Lian He, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Ahmed Madani, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Carl Philip Lippo, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Gregory Joseph Badros, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Stephen Charles Cole, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Ross Benito Ortega, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Nan Hussey, Doctor of Philosophy, Comparative Literature.
Kevin Patrick Henshaw, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Yi Ding Hu, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Wilbert Derek Weathersby, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Wen Lin Huang, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Rex Matthew Jakovovitz, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Stephen Gregory Gerst, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Mark Eric Fusinski, Doctor of Computer Science and Engineering.
Todd Robert Stadel, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Jeff Michael Volker, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Sanchita Raichaudhuri, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
Zhongli Ding, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioengineering.
Brett Powell Mackey, Doctor of Philosophy, Economics.
John C. Y. Lee, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Timothy John Lenz, Doctor of Philosophy, Asian Languages and Literature.
Mark L. Potocki, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Darlene Margaret Lake, Doctor of Philosophy, Romance Languages and Literature, Spanish.
Vesna Savage, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Derek C. Stanford, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Derek C. Stanford, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Theodora Rutar Schumann, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Ellen M. Hickey, Doctor of Philosophy, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Kyle Youssef Flanagan, Doctor of Philosophy, Materials Science and Engineering.
Laura Brueggemann Green, Doctor of Philosophy, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Feng Jin, Doctor of Philosophy, Materials Science and Engineering.
Geraldine Rose Timler, Doctor of Philosophy, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Jason Charles O'Neill, Doctor of Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Molecular and Cellular Biology.
Marilyn Farnsworth Dilley, Doctor of Philosophy, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Tu Tui Nguyen, Doctor of Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Molecular and Cellular Biology.
Dawn Lene Martin, Doctor of Philosophy, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Wendy Law, Doctor of Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Molecular and Cellular Biology.
Mark Andrew Martin, Doctor of Philosophy, Applied Mathematics.
Michael Eugene Wright, Doctor of Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Molecular and Cellular Biology.
Soo Hee Kim, Doctor of Philosophy, Linguistics.
Maria Corina Palanca Wessels, Doctor of Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Molecular and Cellular Biology.
Bao Hua Zhou, Doctor of Philosophy, Zoology.
Amanda Elizabeth Chevelle, Doctor of Philosophy, Neurobiology and Behavior.
Douglas John Wolfe, Doctor of Philosophy, Linguistics.
David Michael Smith, Doctor of Philosophy, Pharmacology.
Vern Myron Lindblad, Doctor of Philosophy, Linguistics.
Arthur Martin Baca, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioengineering.
Lisa Ellen Nakamura, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
Ravi A. Managuli, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Byron Jiro Nakamura, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
Sayan Dev Patek, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioengineering.
Scott Allen Rausch, Doctor of Philosophy, History.
John P. Anderson, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioengineering.
Daryl Han Min Yong, Doctor of Philosophy, Applied Mathematics.
Toby Brian Cole, Doctor of Philosophy, Biochemistry.
Arnold Dong Kyun Kim, Doctor of Philosophy, Applied Mathematics.
David Matthew Chudzik, Doctor of Philosophy, Biochemistry.
Virginia Vulgaris, Doctor of Musical Arts, Vocal Performance.
Rosalind Jane Finch, Doctor of Philosophy, Immunology.
Stelos Stilianou, Doctor of Philosophy, Sociology.
Lei Sui, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioengineering.
Elizabeth Marie Klimasmith, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Yangkung Wang, Bioengineering.
David Oldham, Davis Oldham, Doctor of Philosophy, English.
Wei Chung Chen, Doctor of Philosophy, Bioengineering.
Ray Del Cecil Bradley, Doctor of Musical Arts, Instrumental Conducting.
Cho-hee Yoon, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Ryan Mitchell Hare, Doctor of Musical Arts, Composition.
Feng Yi Hung, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Donald Brad Sherman, Doctor of Musical Arts, Composition.
Billy Ray Woodall, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Linda Sue Smith, Doctor of Musical Arts, Piano.
Munisha Desai, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Jing Shin Ko, Doctor of Musical Arts, Strings.
Robin Lee McClelland, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Jing Tsai Ko, Doctor of Musical Arts, Strings.
Gregory Roger Warrens, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Maria K. Su, Doctor of Philosophy, Ethnomusicology.
Gregory Laird Snow, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Nikki Stein, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Thomas Michael Braun, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Eric C. Thompson, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Jennifer Clark Nelson, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Sushada Tawisit, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Todd Allen Alonzo, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Jan Robin Weissman, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Julie Ann Stoner, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Ping Kiao Luang Aramsi, Doctor of Philosophy, Anthropology.
Dabashish Ghosh, Doctor of Philosophy, Public Health, Biostatistics.
Amy Marie Carrillo Rowe, Doctor of Philosophy, Speech Communication.
Janet Croker Zuber, Doctor of Education, Educational Leadership, and Policy Studies. Richard M. Fisher, Doctor of Pharmacy. Brian Emmett Beach, Doctor of Pharmacy. Raleen Rolonzo Gabot, Doctor of Pharmacy. Maylene Urez Panaligan, Doctor of Pharmacy. Tang Quoc Pham, Doctor of Pharmacy.
Candidates for master's degrees will be presented by Dean Landolt of the Graduate School.
Candidates for the various master's degrees will please rise as your degree is called and remain standing. Master of Master of Architecture, Master of Arts, Master of Arts for Teachers, Master of Arts in International Studies, Master of Business Administration, Master of Education, Master of Fine Arts, Master of Health Administration, Master of Landscape Architecture, Master of Laws, Master of Library and Information Science, Master of Marine Affairs, Master of Music, Master of Nursing, Master of Professional Accounting, Master of Public Administration, Master of Public Health, Master of Science in Aeronautics and Astronautics, Master of Science in Civil Engineering, Master of Science in Construction Management, Master of Science in Dentistry, Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, Master of Science in Engineering, Master of Science in Industrial Engineering, Master of Science in Materials Science and Engineering, Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, Master of Science, Master of Social Work, Master in Teaching, Master of Urban Planning. Mr. President, I would like to introduce Dean Alan Glenn of the College of Education to introduce the master's candidates from that college.
The candidates for the degree of Master of Education will please rise with the other master's candidates. Thank you.
Alan Glenn is about to step down from the post he has held with distinction since 1989. During his years as dean, the College of Education carried out a major revision of its teacher training program, which now culminates in a master's degree, and which earned Dean Glenn a national award from the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education. He also initiated many productive partnerships with public schools and strengthened the college's programs to train teachers. Please join me in recognizing Dean Glenn's important accomplishments.
Mr. President, I would like to introduce Dean Dean Mark Lindenberg of the Daniel J. Evans School of Public Affairs to introduce the master's candidates from that school.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Public Administration in the Daniel J. Evans School of Public Affairs will please rise with the other master's candidates.
Mr. President, on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the graduate faculty, I'm honored to present these candidates to receive their respective master's degrees.
On behalf of the Board of Regents and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to confer upon each of you your master's degree. Congratulations. You will be presented today with a memento of these graduation exercises, so please come forward.
And you are watching Commencement 2000 from the University of Washington. Master's degree candidates. There are 2,040 of them, and many of them are here today to receive their degrees. Some, of course, will continue their graduate work, but most will likely join the workforce over the next few weeks or months.
With any sort of luck, they should be able to take a little break at least. Time to kick back. What they say about all work and no play. Every couple of years, university administrators do some number crunching to explain to us, we the public, how the university benefits the region's economy. The numbers, and these are for fiscal 1999, are really impressive.
You know, the economic activity generated in this state by the UW totaled $4.1 billion this year. That is the fiscal year 1999, and that's $1.5 billion greater than the comparable figure for 1997. But even more telling is the fact that last year's economic activity is more than 19 times the state's net investment in the university's budget.
Would that all our investments did as well, then?
Yes.
As you might expect, these dollar figures translate into jobs, among other things. This should please a lot of the young men and women now receiving their diplomas. The university's activities and expenditures last year produced more than 48,000 jobs, and those were in addition to the university's own workforce, which is substantial.
And this activity also attracted more than $600 million from outside Washington State to support university programs. That, too, is a sizable increase over the 1997 figures, and many economists suggest that this pattern will continue as a greater number of students enter and graduate from the UW.
We confer, as you heard a little earlier in our commencement ceremonies, about 9,500 degrees each year. A large majority of our graduates remain in and contribute to Washington's economy. In the last 10 years, over 150 new companies have sprouted up across the state to commercialize technologies developed at the University of Washington. It seems quite likely that some of today's graduating class will be joining some of those companies.
But, you know, Jim, while these numbers do look good, all is not rosy for higher education in Washington State. If you follow this issue, you'd be interested in an interview with UW President Richard McCormick, and it's in this June issue of Columns. That's the alumni magazine.
Well worth the reading. He brings out some very important points, not just to the University of Washington, but to higher education in general. The master's degree portion of our Graduation 2000 is coming to a close. Stand by for the main event. This broadcast brought to you on UW-TV.
Mr. President, candidates for bachelor's degrees in the various colleges and schools of the university will be presented to you by the several deans. The candidates who have been accepted by the general faculty of the university for their respective degrees are listed in the commencement. The candidates for bachelor's degrees in the College of Arts and Sciences would be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean David Hodge.
Will the proud candidates in the College of Arts and Sciences please stand up? Mr. President, I have the honor to present these candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Fine Arts, Bachelor of Music, and Bachelor of Science, and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Arts and Sciences be awarded their bachelor degrees. Candidates, please sit down.
Bachelor's candidates from the College of Engineering, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Denise D. Denton.
Candidates from the College of Engineering will please rise. It gives me great pleasure, Mr. President, to present these candidates of the College of Engineering for the degrees of Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical, Ceramic, Chemical, Civil, Computer, Electrical, Industrial, Mechanical, Metallurgical, and Bachelor of Science in Technical Communication. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Engineering be awarded their bachelor's degrees.
Please be seated. Candidates from the College of Forest Resources will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean David Forud.
Candidates from the College of Forest Resources will please rise. Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present these candidates for their bachelor's degrees in forest resources and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Forest Resources be awarded their respective bachelor's degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
After almost 20 years as Dean of the College of Forest Resources, David Thorud is stepping down from that post. Under his leadership, the college has flourished and is among the preeminent forestry schools in the nation. Dean Thorud has also been a loyal and indispensable public servant of this university, having served as Interim Director of Government Relations, Acting Provost, and most recently, Acting Vice President for University Relations. In all of these roles, he has brought dedication, wisdom, and a wonderful sense of humor. Please join me in saluting Dean David Thorud.
Bachelor's candidates from the School of Business Administration will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Yash Gupta.
Candidates from the School of Business Administration, please rise. They're already there. Mr. President, it is with much pleasure that I present these candidates for bachelor's degree in the School of Business Administration and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Business Administration be awarded the respective degrees. Candidates, please be seated.
Bachelor's candidates from the College of Ocean and Fishery Sciences, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Arthur Noel.
Candidates from the College of Ocean and Fishery Sciences, please rise. It gives me great pleasure, Mr. President, to present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in oceanography and in fisheries. I recommend that all requirements of the College of Ocean and Fisheries Sciences be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Nursing will be presented, Mr. President, by Dean Nancy Woods.
Will the candidates for the bachelor's degree from the #1 ranked School of Nursing please rise? Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present these candidates to you for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and I recommend to you that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Nursing be awarded their Bachelor of Science degree. Candidates, please be seated.
Bachelor's candidates from the School of Dentistry will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Paul Robertson.
Will the candidates for the School of Dentistry please rise? Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present a list of candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Dental Hygiene. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements be awarded their bachelor's degrees. Please be seated.
Bachelor's candidates from the College of Architecture and Urban Planning will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Jerry V. Finrow.
Will candidates from the College of Architecture and Urban Planning please rise? Mr. President, I have the honor to present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in architecture, urban planning, landscape architecture, construction management, and in community and environmental planning, and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Architecture and Urban Planning be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
I have the privilege of paying tribute here to yet another retiring dean, as Jerry Finrow steps down after 5 highly successful years as Dean of the College of Architecture and Urban Planning. Dean Finrow has led the college in a variety of efforts to renew itself, to achieve greater integration, to embrace new technologies, and to reach out to the world and the communities of professional practice. He has strengthened the college and the university, and we applaud his efforts.
Bachelor's candidates from the School of Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Hunt.
Will the bachelor candidates from the School of Medicine please stand, please? There you are. Mr. President, it's my privilege to present to you the bachelor candidates in the School of Medicine from the specialized degrees of physical therapy, occupational therapy, medical technology, prosthetics, orthotics, and the physician assistants from the MEDEX program. Thank you. Candidates, please be seated.
Candidates from the School of Social Work will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Nancy Huyman.
Candidates from the School of Social Work, please rise. Mr. President, on behalf of the faculty, it is my privilege to present their candidates for their bachelor's degrees in social welfare and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Social Work be awarded their respective bachelor degrees. Candidates, please be seated.
Candidates from the School of Public Health and Community Medicine would be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Patricia Wall.
Will the candidates from the School of Public Health and Community Medicine please rise? Mr. President, it is my great pleasure to present the candidates for bachelor's degrees in the School of Public Health and Community Medicine, that all who have met the requirements of our school be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates, you may be seated.
All bachelor's candidates from all schools and colleges just presented will please rise. Following President McCormick's citation awarding the various bachelor's degrees, all candidates will be seated immediately, and under direction of the faculty marshals will await their turn to come forward 1 row at a time.
On behalf of the Board of Regents and the faculty of the University of Washington, I am pleased to confer upon each of you your bachelor's degree. Congratulations. Your university is very proud of you. May I now ask you to be seated and await your turn to come forward.
And you are watching the 125th Commencement from the University of Washington, brought to you as a public service by UW TV.
This is the main event for most of the graduating class of 2000, the awarding of bachelor degrees. We do not have precise figures on the number taking part in the ceremony today, but longtime observers of the event say it appears that we have a full house, virtually every seat occupied. We may have set yet another record for the number of participants.
And Jim, the greatest draw we have for these students is, of course, the faculty. Few get much public attention, but most have a genuinely visceral connection to their subjects and to their students. There's still great emphasis here on research and publishing, but teaching is the common glue. And professors, as you will soon hear, love their classroom connections.
That is very true. Just for the record, the University of Washington faculty includes 4 Nobel Prize winners, 40 members of the National Academy of Sciences, 40 members of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, 12 members of the National Academy of Engineering, and 1 winner of the National Book Award.
Now, earlier in this broadcast, you saw some faculty members and lecturers being honored for their distinguished classroom work. Well, about a week ago, Jim had a chance to join a discussion with 4 of those faculty members: Jerry Baldesty, Steve Cloyd, Bruce Coaches, and Robin Wright, that is. And here's a part of that discussion.
Do you like the idea of involving undergraduate students in research projects?
Oh, yes.
Are there pros and cons to that?
Well, it's like everything. It sort of depends how you do it. I mean, the negative aspect would be is if you sort of use them as slaves. But that's not really involving them in research. And I think, as I see it, involving them in research is helping them understand how you define research questions and how you answer them. And that is critical thinking. And that's a kind of a skill that they can use throughout their lifetime. And I think if we can equip students with that, that's probably the best thing that we can do here. So, depending again how you define it, but to me it's all up. If you do it right.
Is that a similar experience for all of you?
In my experience, and I've had dozens of students in my lab doing research, and the downside is you can't really expect them to accomplish a lot usually. Out of all of the students that I've had in my lab, people that have really pushed the envelope of the science. But on the other hand, the really positive thing is they ask questions that you never dreamed of asking. And it can push your own research in new directions that are very creative in ways that you would not have imagined either. And they bring an energy to the lab and to the research that other students, graduate students or postdocs or whatever, don't often match.
For me, one of the critical issues is to try and get some of that research connected to real-world problems and to get it as close as possible to the real stuff so that students can see how important research really is, not only just for their own personal education, but how it really fits into a society, into a world. And that, for me, is one of the exciting parts about engaging students in undergraduate research.
Yeah, one of the things I think that fits very nicely with that is the idea of having grads and undergrad students together, because a lot of the research that we do in public health is community-based research, and it's also research that's very much tied to policy and advocacy. And the undergrads have this enthusiasm, particularly around doing things, around protesting, doing the kind of work that a lot of times the grad students don't have. And I think that there's a real nice complementarity of that energy that the undergrads bring with perhaps a little less maturity, and that sort of super maturity that faculty and grad students have that sometimes is compensated by the undergrads.
It's very synergistic. The sum is more than the parts.
Yeah, I think so too.
Have you ever thought about what makes you a distinguished teacher? I mean, is it commitment to your subject, your exposure to students, your ability to expose students to new ideas? Is it hard work?
It's very hard work, but at the same time it's a joy and a privilege. Maybe I'll speak differently, maybe you'll have a different idea. I don't think what we do is really that awfully different from what my colleagues do, frankly. I think that you could probably give one of these awards to just about every professor on campus. I mean, all of my colleagues work very hard on their teaching. They take it very seriously. They try to incorporate new ideas. So it's a very hard question to answer. How we were chosen from among the many that I feel deserve, are deserving.
I agree with Robin. I mean, you think about how did you get this award, and there's a culture from colleagues and staff and students, teaching assistants and others that you work in, and so I really
Buoys
do.
You up.
Yeah, I really.
Right.
I mean, so we have in my department, and I'm sure this is probably true for many of the rest of you. I'd be surprised if it weren't. Good conversations with a lot of people at various times about teaching, and I don't think I'm a lot better teacher or a better teacher than many of them, because they're dedicated, they work hard, and they connect with students.
That's certainly,
oh, excuse me, Bruce.
I was just going to say that's certainly especially true for me out at the Bothell campus, where that is just written into our basic mission, that we devote time and energy significantly to teaching in the classroom. And when I stepped in there first in 1994, I was really sort of surprised at how intense people were working on their classes, how intensely they were working on them, and that sort of just energizes me and keeps me going as well. So it is really a very communal-based kind of idea of good teaching.
One of the things that occurred to me, well, first of all, is that when I got the award, I'd never thought of myself as a distinguished teacher, and to ask what makes a distinguished teacher is only a question that has actually come to me a lot recently. What is this? And we had a little reception in the School of Public Health around this award, because the School of Public Health thinks of itself as a research institute, and they were pleased that somebody could get a teaching award. And so I was listening real carefully to figure out what it was, because I actually didn't know, because I never, just like you're saying, I never thought of myself as being particularly different than other teachers. And what students were saying had a lot less to do with what I thought the whole process started. Because I thought a distinguished teacher or a good teacher, and the people who got awards before were people who really had it together, who were able to give great lectures, and were able to really sort of organize their thoughts and whatever very well. And that wasn't the impression that I got of what the students were saying. Right. They said that basically a good teacher is somebody who cares. A good teacher is somebody with a passion. A good teacher is somebody who really, who is sort of accessible to students, who's just around. And I realized that the kind of work that it takes to sort of organize and structure lectures is not really what necessarily makes a difference. I think what makes a difference is just being both, part of a broad process, listening to what people have to say, and knowing that, at least for me, that the students in our program collectively know a lot more than their professors, and particularly me. And I sort of think of myself as sort of a midwife of knowledge, that there's a lot of knowledge out there, and the more that, I can help students teach me and students teach each other, the better that whole process is. So it's really different than I had thought.
I'd sort of echo one element of what you said, and this from my own experience as a graduate student 25 years ago. There were no instructions at that point on how to become a teacher. We now have a lot of teaching seminars for our students, which is very good. So I had no one to tell me what it was to be a good teacher. So I watched people who I thought were good teachers. And they were quite different from one another. Yeah. People like Giovanni Costigan in history, or Bill Ames in communications, and they were very different in how they approached things. But the common denominator were the kinds of things that you were talking about. They had a passion, first and foremost. They had a passion for what they were doing. I've had students say in evaluations, I don't really like history of mass media. I really think history is boring. But you thought it was kind of interesting, and so, I was willing to spend 10 weeks with you, and then some sort of a concern for students and whether they were learning and whether the stuff made sense to them. So I think that those are really and that was what I took away from my teachers, people I saw.
And I'm really glad to see, I think that the profession is moving away from what I would call the tyranny of the one right way. Right. Yeah. The idea that there is this one thing that makes teaching good, and in fact it's a whole bunch of abilities, skills, enthusiasms, attitudes. It's a very complex kind of process, and there's room for all different kinds of distinguished teaching to occur. I think all of us are probably different in many ways in our classrooms.
You'd hope so.
Which is all to the good.
So maybe the definition is, the final definition is, do you excite students?
Oh.
And how you get there doesn't really matter, is if you, at the end line, if they see value. So maybe students define it better than we do.
And do students excite you, I think, is another part of that, because I think that it's really an iterative process, where it goes back and forth. And that's one of the things that's great about the public health school, is that we have a lot of people who are mid-career folks who are coming in, along with some of the undergrads and the younger folks. And for me, every time I go to a class, I realize that I'm going to be learning something new, or they're going to be, moving me in a direction that I hadn't been in before, and that's exciting.
Is communication. Can I just do one other thing? So what I'm hearing is something that I've also thought as well, and that is the very best teachers put the focus from the teaching to the learning. And that's what you're basically saying, is this process going on in these students at this particular moment? And if not, what can I do to make that happen? Yeah. So not simply preparing the great lecture, not simply preparing the well-organized class, but asking, is it meeting the students at least halfway?
Right.
Yeah. On the subject of communications technology, is that going to change what you do, the way you do it, how you interact with your students?
Oh yes, it already has. In so many ways. I interact with many students who are rather shy, will not be shy about emails, and so we can email one another very frequently. I use...
Just thinking of my email list.
Your list is going on.
And so that's actually a real positive.
And everyone should email Robin, right?
Who's aggressive?
That's right.
The use of computers and internet directly, animations, etc., are really powerful. They can move students in ways that simply describing things or having a static image can't do.
I think there's a greater potential for their active participation in things. They do stuff, they go find stuff, and they're adept at this, and so this is of great interest to them. And I think one thing that's important in teaching is to get students actively engaged in what they're doing. I find email to be, especially if it's a big class, anything over 100, few students want to ask a question in public because they're afraid that's the wrong question. It probably never is the wrong question, but they're worried about that, and so email allows them to ask the question without fear.
What I've been trying to do because a lot of this technology is new for me and for us, et cetera, is to also plow a question back into the class about how it's working. Right? To keep not only just using the technology, but interrogating the technology, questioning it as we're going along, and always checking it back against, Robin, what you were saying about the learning that's really happening. And keep continually asking the students, is this helping you learn things? Or is it getting in the way? And we get interesting, varied answers in a lot of different ways, and it keeps me kind of alive to the positives and negatives of technology. And not that I ever get the mix completely right, but I'm always thinking about that mix. Because in some cases it can interfere, and in fact we can start relying on email rather than the face-to-face communication that some students really do need more so. So I think it's part of the changing nature of the teaching profession that we continually question what's happening in the use of technology.
There are a couple of ways that I think it really helps for the students in public health. One is the email contacts, and it's not just a matter of contact, but with listservs and discussion groups, you just have constant learning going on all the time, and so the students really have an easier opportunity to bring stuff in, which is
right at the point where they have a problem.
Exactly.
So they're studying late at night, they run into something they don't understand, they post it on the listserv, and they can get feedback immediately from other people.
Or new information coming from around the world about something, and it's really, and then somebody comments on it, somebody else comments on it, and they say, well, I heard something back here that is relevant to that. So that's one way. Another is that I think it helps students and faculty become more activist-oriented about doing things that are related to their studies. Because as we put on, I still think one-to-one or in-person teaching is really important, but it's really great to be able to have on a website what you can do about what you learn. so that we have links to advocacy groups, we have links to large organizations like World Health Organizations where people know exactly what the options are. And I think that's really exciting because it blurs that distinction between the sort of theory and practice. And the third thing is when people go back, the learning doesn't stop. So my relationship with students has really changed in the last, I think, 5 years as we've had email and web connections, that they're no longer people who are coming from their countries, for instance, and so they sort of have this idea of what's going on as really just related to their own fairly well-defined parameters. I mean, borders are much less distinct. They're able to know that when, say, structural adjustment programs or human rights issues or whatever, touch their own countries, that there's some similar things going on in other places, and they're able to really gain, I think, a sense of solidarity, if you will, with other people.
Well, to the first point you spoke about, again, here's my skepticism emerging. More information can be exchanged, but that also means that more misinformation can be proposed and exchanged. And the love bug virus reminded us that we become a little dependent, and in some cases that can be harmful. To the second point, so one example that I have is that when I teach a course in Eastern Europe with a special emphasis on Russia, I actually hook them up, the students, via email to students in Russia. And so they're going to Russia to get information that contradicts what I'm. We end up with some very lively discussions that way. And that is so revolutionary for work in international arenas that I see that as only growing by leaps and bounds in the future and to be an enormous benefit to our teaching and learning in the classroom.
This may be an unanswerable question given our time constraints, but let me ask it anyway. You are in a unique position to discuss the state of education. Are our schools giving students the skills they need to succeed personally and academically? If you could change something about the way K through 12, for instance, operates, are there changes you would make?
I'll speak at least from the point of view of science. I'm distressed. In most of the elementary schools in this state, there is not a science curriculum, and no science at all is taught in most of the classes. And I still find that very hard to believe. There are programs at the university that help that, but the pressures are so great on the teachers and on the principals to teach to the exam now that it's very difficult. Science and other things, art probably and other things, are looked on as unnecessary extras. The finances of the schools are totally related to how their scores are in this. I view it as a real problem. I think students are coming in less and less prepared in fields, in the science fields. They're coming into the university less prepared for science.
And you said this as well, and I would stress it. I think that people K through 12 work enormously hard, but I do think that there's a tyranny of the exams, the standardized exams. And so another aspect to it is that students are taught for exams to some extent in K through 12. I think that's an inevitable system in which rewards and punishment are based on whether or not scores are good each year. And so I'm finding really good students coming to me who expect me to teach to the exam. And that's a very hard, if we talk about, the struggle is that I'm the person who keeps saying to them, but the real world is not like that. You're not going to get to be taught for the exam once you leave here, and I don't want to do that here. I'm happy to talk about the exam. And so I think it puts students at a disadvantage in the long run because they're waiting for coaching for the exam. And boy, I don't think that knowledge is necessarily, that's the best way to approach critical thinking and the kinds of life skills that we want them to have. So that's, I think, a change that I've seen. Again, I would stress, though, I think that I wouldn't blame the K through 12 teachers for it.
No, I didn't mean that.
No, I know you didn't. I'm just stressing that you were very clear about that.
What about writing skills?
I think there's less writing going on compared to when I was going to school 30 years ago. And that's, I heard people 30 years ago say, oh, when I was in school. But it is true that again, I think it's issues of pressures of time. K through 12 teachers have to do a great deal more retraining than they did when I was in K through 12. And so a lot of them are going to classes in the evening and on weekends and summers, in addition to teaching their classes. I think there's less time for grading for them. So there's less writing going on in a lot of schools, K through 12. And so our students who come in have less facility with that.
One of the things that in teaching and working in the human rights arena that's important for me is to try and relate to those students in K-12 systems in ways that take them very seriously and that they can take the world very seriously. I'm quite particularly aware that the problems in human rights are going to be here for a long time, and we're going to need generations of people working in that arena. So I'm often worried that sometimes international education is often reduced to, sort of clever posters and cute kinds of artifacts rather than really grappling with the issues confronting the world. And while that has to be time to the students' development, certainly, and psychological abilities at certain points in time, I'm still worried sometimes that they aren't really sort of treating those young people as an early enough age.
Mm-hmm. Can I say one good thing about K through 12 that I really noticed compared to 30 years ago? I'm concerned about the test, but on the other hand, I think that there's less formality in teaching K through 12. So there's more engagement of the students. There are more kinds of projects that get them actively involved in trying stuff out, creating. My niece in Spokane has been actively engaged in some citizen activist kinds of things in grade school, in which people sort of look at public projects and then propose budgets. And so I think that there's some levels of creativity that are going on in K through 12 that are nothing compared to what 30 years ago there was very little of that. It was learn this and learn it and know it. And I think that there's much more experiential kind of, and so as a consequence, I think we're getting students who are more creative in some ways, or more willing to try out stuff than was true 30 years ago.
Well, it's always nice to wrap up on a positive note. We've got another 20 acres over which we could trod. The time is gone, however. Thank you very much, distinguished teachers all. Jerry Baldesty, Professor of Communications, Steve Lloyd, Professor in the School of Public Health, Bruce Coaches, Senior Lecturer in Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, Robin Wright, Professor of Zoology. Thank you for rearranging your incredible schedules to chat about a subject near and dear to all our hearts. You're watching coverage of the 125th Commencement from the University of Washington in Seattle on UWTV.
Recipients of the Distinguished Teaching Award receive a $5,000 honorarium, and that comes from private contributions to the President's Fund for Excellence.
There are 3 other faculty members who received Distinguished Teaching Awards this year. Their schedules precluded them from joining our discussion. They are Guozong Zhao, Professor of Materials Science and Engineering, Stanley Chernikoff, Professor of Geology, and Julie Nicoletta, Professor of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences. Nicoletta teaches in Tacoma.
You know, Jim, every commencement has its special stories, and one of those this year involves the Baron family. Tanya, her mother Patricia, and her father Ruben are all receiving bachelor's degrees at today's ceremony. The Barons arrived from the United States from Mexico 16 years ago.
It's really quite a story, then. Ruben was a dentist there, his wife an anthropologist. Neither's credentials was accepted in this country, so they all ended up at the university. Tanya in the day program, her parents in evening degree program, and at one time, Tanya's brother Ivan was also studying here. He graduated last year and will be attending Harvard this fall.
And about 90% of these soon-to-be alumni are Washington residents, and many of them, as students, were involved in a lot of volunteer work with a variety of community organizations. It's an activity that the university has promoted, and its success speaks highly for members of the class of 2000.
It does, indeed. The university has a Leadership and Public Service Center. The center coordinates a lot of this volunteer work. It is named in honor of a man whose volunteer work in the Northwest is legendary, Edward Carlson. Carlson served as a university regent for many years.
It's the idea of service learning, actually, and what it does is integrates community service into the UW courses. For instance, there are programs in tutoring, and that's administered through what's known as the Pipeline Project. Teams of university students, usually undergraduates, work with elementary school children in several schools that serve homeless children and other youngsters who are at risk.
Yet another classroom emphasis over the last few years has put the students, whom we see right now, in touch with the real world of business. Some of these are classroom assignments, especially at the undergraduate level, assignments that give these students hands-on experience. It's quite a change from teaching methods of the past, and there are also more direct connections with various Northwest industries.
You know, there was actually a good example of that connection occurred about a week ago. The university held the first annual Mechanical Engineering Design Fair. It's a kind of show and tell that demonstrates how well students can analyze a problem and then design a system to solve it.
I think it is safe to say that we have been thrice blessed as far as the weather is concerned for our graduation ceremonies, this the 125th. The sun has come out, the rain is behind us. We haven't really had too much today.
The rain may be in front of us again, but right now it is beautiful here and sunny and just a lovely day.
What a great way to wrap things up. Those who observe other large university commencement programs tell us that ours is one of the most colorful affairs in the nation. That's nice to know. It's hard to beat this setting, of course. Lake Washington and the Cascade Mountains to the east and to the west, weather permitting, the snow-capped Olympics.
And a lovely, lovely sunny end to this ceremony. We are nearing the close of today's graduation ceremony, and we are coming to you from Husky Stadium on UW TV.
After the singing of the alma mater, the audience and members of the graduating class are requested to remain standing in their places until the recessional of the faculty is concluded. The graduating class is then free to join family and friends. The audience will now please rise for the singing of the alma mater. The words are printed on the inside of the back cover of the commencement program.
We sing, who keeps the wood o'er all her sons from sea to sea. Our alma mater, Washington, a health we give to thee. Child of the mighty western land, you're the mother of a mighty race. Silent or gentle vigil holds in strength, purity, and grace. All hail, O Washington, thy sons and daughters sing that acclaim through years of youth and loyalty, and still in age we sing thy fame. In honor thy towers stand, thy battlements shine in dawning light, and glow again in sunset rays. All hail, O Washington!
The 125th commencement exercises of the University of Washington are now closed.